The Talibans are in the news again, and the world news media is going crazy, as if the only issue in this world is the treatment of women by the Talibans. What exactly are the Talibans doing? They are restricting the freedom of women, and they are doing it in the name of Islam. And that is a concern. Does Islam really restrict the freedom of women? When I look into history, I see in pre-Islamic Saudi some elite women like Bibi Khadija had complete freedom. However, the vast majority of women did not have any status, rights or freedom of their own. When Islam was established, it granted freedom for everyone, including the women. Islam came with the fundamental message of freedom, equality and justice for all, rich or poor, men or women. So when the Talibans are restricting the freedom of women in the name of Islam, then my question is, which brand of Islam are they really believing? Which brand of Islam do they follow? After almost 1500 years later, when I study the Quran today, the holy guidebook of Islam, I see that fundamental message of freedom, equality and justice is clearly stated. Particularly, depending on the men and women's, the freedom of women, the discussion that I started today, I will only focus on that. And in many verses in the Quran, I see that men and women are stated in the same verse again and again in the Quran. What I understood from this type of citations in the Quran, that means Allah is simply ensuring the equality for both men and women, is not giving one superiority over the other, so that it is established, it is acknowledged. I can give you some example. Suppose verse number 71, chapter 9 is saying the believing men and women, they are allies to one another. Next verse 72, God has promised the believing men and women gardens with rivers flowing beneath it, in which they will abide. When I read verse 35, chapter 33, is saying, surely the peacefully surrendering men and the peacefully surrendering women, the believing men and the believing women, the obedient men and the obedient women, the pious men and the pious women. Think about this, so and so. In the same verse, both men and women are cited, just to clarify the equal rights, so that nobody feel left out, nobody feels superiority over others. I will give you some specific example about this, whether Islam restricts the freedom of women or not. I would bring example from chapter 66, Surah At-Tahrim. This is an interesting chapter. It is started with a warning to the Prophet. The Prophet has done something wrong and Allah is warning him that, O you Prophet, why did you prohibit what your Lord has made lawful to you? It's simply saying that the Prophet had no authority to change the rule, the guideline, the message of the Quran, the guideline that was given in the Quran. In the subsequent verses, the similar warning came for Prophet's wife. Allah is directly talking to them that they have done something wrong, and Allah is saying that the Prophet may divorce you, and if he does, then Allah will substitute you with other women who are better than you. Allah is simply warning them that because of your wrongdoing, Allah can, if the Prophet divorce you, Allah will substitute other women in your place who are better than you. And then the interesting point is, what does make a woman better than somebody else? Is there a specific qualities to make somebody better? And yes, Allah in the same verse is giving examples, not examples, also bringing some qualities of a better wife or a better woman. 8 qualities are referred here. I will only focus one. 6th one, the word used is sa'ihat. Sa'ihat. Traveling for a cause. The woman who has this quality is called sa'ihatin. That means somebody who travels for a cause, for a reason. Think about this way. This is the quality mentioned in the Quran of a better wife or a better woman. If we restrict the freedom of a woman, then how can she travel for a reason, for a cause that she needs to? It doesn't make any sense. You may think this is not enough argument, this is not a good example of whether a woman right is freedom is restricted or not. Sure, in the subsequent verses Allah also brings examples of 2 different kinds of women, who are rejectors or who are believing women. The rejectors, or you can consider who are of those or not of those better quality women, and the believing one you can consider who are definitely of the better quality women, right? So the example for the rejectors are wife of Prophet Noah and wife of Prophet Lut. Allah is saying that even though they were married to 2 of Allah's messenger, but they did something wrong, so they were rejectors and they would not be able to help themselves, or the prophets would not be able to help them because they rejected, they did something wrong. On the other hand, the examples, 2 examples are brought. First one is the wife of Pharaoh, the Pharaoh's wife. She was shown as a believing woman. Can you imagine? She was one of the most powerful women at that time. Do you think her freedom was restricted? Her independence was restricted? No. The second example was bringing Mary, Maryam, the mother of Jesus, the daughter of Imran. Do you think her freedom was restricted? Do you think her access to higher education was restricted? I don't think so. She was sent to a boarding school away from her home. She was raised in a madrasa or a masjid type of setting under a male supervisor, Prophet Zakaria. Do you think that this example, by bringing this example, Allah is clearly showing that a woman's freedom is not restricted, woman's freedom or access to the higher education is not restricted? Clearly, yes. This is what Allah is trying to show in these examples. That's what I believe. I do not see the freedom of woman is restricted in Quran. I am bringing another example, chapter 27 verse 44. Allah is giving an example of a powerful woman, powerful wise woman, Queen of Sheba. She was shown as a wise woman, as a powerful believing woman. By bringing all these examples, Allah is trying to show, as what I believe, that the freedom of women is not restricted in Islam, as we also saw in the history of Islam. However, after 1500 years later, now the freedom and rights of women one by one are taken away in the name of Islam. So something, somehow, somewhere there is a disconnect. What the message of the Quran is saying, or the history is saying, and what the Muslims are doing today. Again, the Talibans are not the only group that are doing it. The ISIS did it, the Boko Haram is doing it, even the Saudis are doing it. Don't forget that even until 2018 or 2019, a Saudi woman did not have the right to drive a car by herself. All these folks are restricting the freedom of Islam, freedom of women in the name of Islam, and the vast majority of Muslims are supporting it. And that's why the issue is, that's why we need to acknowledge that there is a fundamental disconnect, there is a fundamental issue what the Muslims today are believing or following versus what the Quran is saying or the history is saying. If we want to resolve this issue, if we want to analyze this issue, at least we need to acknowledge it that there is an issue. I think the Muslims are in denial. Anytime we want to discuss with our friends, we always think there is nothing to discuss, there is no issue. And that's why we are also facing a bigger challenge. I think my request to you would be, at least let's acknowledge that there is a issue, there is an issue, and then we can analyze and resolve, try to see if we can resolve it. At least from this freedom of women point, I can clearly see that the disconnect is showing that there is an issue that needs to be resolved. In my next talk, I will try to analyze that fundamental issue and probably bring some ideas how we can resolve it. Until then, I hope you have a good time and see if you and we together can think about that there is a issue that needs to be resolved. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.